Welcome to our few minutes together on the Parsha. As you know, this Shabbos is the last day of Pesach, and tomorrow, Mi'etz Hashem, on Friday is Shvii Shel Pesach. So we don't have a regular Parsha, but we do read the Shira about the crossing of the Yam Suf. After Klal Yisrael crossed the Yam Suf, and at the Yam Suf, each one of them saw great wonders, they experienced an unusual amount of heavenly inspiration, and each and every one of them was raised to a very high level. When they got to the other side, the Torah tells us that Vatikach Miriam Hanaviyah, that Miriam, the prophetess, took in her hands a Achos Aaron. She was the sister of Aaron, which means she was in a via from way back. She took Atof Biyada. She took into her hand a timbrel, Vatetzena kol anoshim achareha besupim uvim cholos, and all the women went out after her with tof, with drums and singing and dancing, and they all sang, "We will sing to Hashem, Ashir Hashem ki ga'o ga'ah, susv'roch v'odam avayom," and we will sing to Hashem because He is exalted truly, and He threw Paro and his horses into the sea. Paraphrasing, of course, the exact same words as Moshe Rabbeinu. The Chassam Sofer makes a very significant observation. When the Klal Yisrael came to the Yam Suf, it says, Vaya aminu ba'Hashem uva Moshe avdo, that they believed in Hashem and in Moshe, his servant. At the end, it says that the women went out after Miriam, who was a Neviah. Chassam Sofer points out that if you'll see at the Egel, in which the Medrash says the women took no part in the Egel, despite the fact that we had read that Vayaminu b'Hashem of Moshe Avdo, that they had faith in Hashem and in Moshe, nevertheless they made the Egel. They made the Egel because when Moshe was no longer there, and as it says, the people said, V'ish Moshe, that the man Moshe, lo yadanu mehoyalo, we don't know what happened to him. And as the Ramban says, they needed someone to be a vehicle for the Shekhinah, and Moshe was not around, and the only one they believed had the ability to be the so-called seat of the Shekhinah here on earth was Moshe Rabbeinu. And when he was no longer there, they felt that there's nothing that can absorb and reflect the Shekhinah, and mistakenly they made the Egel. The women who did not partake at all in the Egel, says the Chassam Sofer, is because the women knew that Moshe Rabbeinu was not the only vehicle by which the Shekhinah can have a place to shine from on this earth. They knew that there were other Nevi'im, Miriam and others, and therefore, despite the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was not here, they didn't lose their emunah and the bitachon and didn't need any other representation of having Hashem Shekhinah here on earth. They had Miriam and others who also reflected the divine presence. Chassam Sofer's statement is extremely important because it tells us that they didn't need a Moshe Rabbeinu that split the sea. They didn't need a Moshe Rabbeinu that took them out of Mitzrayim. In fact, they had Miriam, and despite the fact that Miriam did not do any open, wondrous miracles, despite the fact that Miriam was not the leader of the Jewish people, but she was someone who reflected the divine inspiration, and they knew that others can reflect that divine inspiration. What a powerful lesson. Even when there's no Moshe Rabbeinu around, and even when there are no great leaders who do miracles, all around us, we have people, we have events, we have Yomim Tovim, We have mitzvos that constantly reflect the divine presence. And that divine presence is something that each and every one of us has the ability to see through other human beings, other leaders, other prophets, other rabbis, other teachers, other great leaders, both men and women, who are reflective of the Shekhinah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if we will only look around, even at the Pesach Yom Tov, isn't it a divine inspiration that after all these years, no matter what Klal Yisrael has been through, we have sat down to the Seder, we've made a clear indication of the discussion of the history of the Jewish people that's been passed down with an unbroken chain from parent to child, directly through 3,300 odd years of Jewish history, without change, without break. This is the idea that Miriam is teaching us, that we have our parents, we have our leaders, we have other Jews who are constantly involved in kind deeds, mitzvahs. The mitzvahs themselves give us an opportunity to recognize the divine presence that exists here on earth, and that we can look at it and reflect upon it. And so the reading of Shvii Shel Pesach and the Yizkor of Achron Shel Pesach, in which we remember our past and remember the divine inspiration that comes through all the generations of history that we possess, we have a place in which to see the divine presence. And that divine presence shines through each and every Jew as they fulfill the requirements of the mitzvahs and of Pesach. Hashem should bless us, that the Yom Tov should help us carry through all the year with that emunah and that bitachon and that awareness that Hashem's divine presence is always amongst us. Chag kosher v'sameach, Shabbat shalom, and a moadim l'simcha.